Well, before I get to a little matter of a blogger being arrested for making jokes at the expense of Sadiq Khan, our nightmare of London, I have to say this first. Some of you may be aware that I've been having problems with my computer. On Friday, they came to take it away, and it spent the weekend and Monday in hospital having its guts ripped out and repaired. Yesterday, I made a video about this blogger's arrest on my laptop, but the poor thing is very, very old and not up to DaVinci Resolve particularly well. That's the video editing software I use, and I didn't like the results. So I'm making the whole thing again because my computer's back, although still with some bits that need attention. But the techie says he can do that here whenever he's got the time. I definitely need more money to continue making these videos. To that end, I'm looking for other sources of income. I do have a dedicated and generous bunch of patrons on Subscribestar, and I am very grateful to you all, but you are members of a very small and exclusive group. I definitely need more contributors, so please, anyone else, consider shoving $1 or $2 my way. Also, I finally found a printer who does one-offs on mugs and t-shirts, and so now I have some mugs and t-shirts which you can buy individually printed, you know. I'll put the pictures up here and information below, and I'll also put them on my Graniopteryx website. The design for the mug is based on an idea and a nifty piece of artwork from a viewer called Callus, and he has, as ever, my thanks. Also, the background I'm going to try to put up here was donated to me by Pete McCree, and I'll put the link to his work in the description below. Okay, so on with the show. And pretty depressing it is, too. It's also sort of interesting because just this morning I saw a Count Dankula video about freedom of speech. Well, obviously, the pressure is becoming so great that, you know, everybody's now talking about it. Maybe something will come out of this ultimately. Anyway, here we have a story which I first saw maybe a week ago by Brian of London. I was a bit suspicious because, well, there's a video from one of the cameras on this chap's house, and the police appear to be wearing green uniforms. And the only green police uniforms in the UK are in Northern Ireland, and I thought this was supposed to be taking place in London. Actually, turned out I was wrong on both counts. First of all, that particular video camera is not accurate to colour. That's all. There are other videos from other cameras on the same site which show the true blue uniform of the British Bobby. And this was not taking place in London either. It seems that the blogger lives somewhere in the Midlands because the officers in the video are in the West Midlands Police, with the exception of the hoodie in the foreground. He is Sergeant Chowdhury of Sadiq Khan's racial and religious hatred unit and had been brought up from London specially to effect the arrest with a civilian assistant. So this is the article, which is, by the way, not that blogger's article. It's somebody else, because I was looking round for various articles to corroborate, and this seemed as good as any. British blogger for counter-jihad website Fahrenheit 211 arrested by hate crime and hate speech police. Door battered in, computer and other items confiscated. Now, I get some pretty dire comments under my videos sometimes, and several of them are just downright anti-Semitic. They're not very nice. But even those people who seem to have some sort of a pathology about Jews should be aware that this is a terrifying story. After all, the authorities got Tommy Robinson for, perverting the course of justice? Something like that. It wasn't right, and they had to do a stretch to get it, obviously, but they had him there in front of the courthouse, and they could cook up a malicious prosecution against him. And they did it on the basis, however tenuous, of British law. This guy was arrested for basically criminal Islamophobia. That's not British law. That's Sharia law. You have to understand that the fact that it started off being applied to a Jew is no guarantee that it's going to stay there. In fact, history tells us quite the opposite. It's a terrifying turn of events, and it's something we all have to be really, really frightened about. And remember, your First Amendment in America, fragile thing. Once a fashion starts over here, it tends to sort of creep over to you in the end. So you've really got to guard that amendment. By the way, the blogger says, a bit further down in the article, I don't know, it'll come up a bit further down, but I want to tell you here, no one should try to contact any of the people mentioned in this article because that could be construed as a crime, and it could cause you trouble, and it could cause the blogger even more trouble when the legal case comes up. So if you want to register your outrage, write to your MP. That's the person who is supposed to be dealing with something like this, if they're not too busy with Brexit. Anyway, this is not the blogger's website, as I said. But the writer does, point out that the Twitter account of Fahrenheit 211 has been suspended. Odd that. 2 weeks ago, 6 police officers from London Mayor Sadiq Khan's hate crime and hate speech unit battered down the door of the blogger's home, confiscated computer equipment and phones, handcuffed him in front of his young son, and took him away in a police van. Actually, turns out that's not strictly accurate. There were 2 officers from Sadiq Khan's little empire. Well, an officer and a civilian assistant. And the others were your usual locals backing them up. I wonder how good they felt about that. Well, just following orders, weren't they? And this is how Fahrenheit 211 reported the incident. He starts with a little description, quite a long description of himself, actually. I can't read it all, but this is the pertinent bit. I'm a centre-right, reasonably free-thinking person with interests in theology and politics expressed in an eclectic and often poorly spelt manner. Not racist, but has a profound distrust and dislike of political correctness and the use of speech codes in order to, I suppose, shut down debate. Now, let's see. He asks people, I'm going to repeat this, not to contact any of the individuals named in this blog. And then he continues with this. On Tuesday, the 22nd of October at approximately 7:15, while I was getting my 4-year-old child ready for school, there was a rather aggressive knock at my front door. I opened the door and found a whole bunch of police officers who wanted me to come out and talk to them. Knowing what the modern day British police are like, in too many cases, which is thuggish and dishonest, his opinion, not mine, or maybe also mine, but I can't say that, can I? I shut the door in their faces. The police do not turn up mob-handed merely to have a chat. Instead, I picked up the handset for my entry phone, which is remotely recorded, and spoke to the officers via that method. I politely requested that they state the reason why they were at my front door, and they said, "We just want to talk, and you must come outside to speak." They refused my request that I would speak to them via the window and insisted that I come out. And while this was going on, I was watching what was happening on CCTV. He says he could see at least 6 of the police in the front and back garden. You know, that's a lot of people out there for one unarmed man, and obviously not a violent one as well, don't you think? The lead officer, whom I later found out was PC Chowdhury of Sidcup, who's attached to Sadiq Khan's hate crime and hate speech unit, became ever more threatening and aggressive in his tone and refused to state exactly why he and the rest of the officers were there. Now, I'm actually not sure about this. Perhaps someone watching this knows more about it than me, but is that actually supposed to happen? I mean, don't the police have to tell you why they're standing outside your house with a pair of handcuffs? You're just asking. He says he sent his child upstairs, and then after about 5 minutes, the police said they were going to break down the door, and an officer came with one of those door lock punching things, and they broke the door in. At least 3 officers, one of whom was PC Chowdhury, rushed into the house. PC Chowdhury then cautioned me, arrested me for malicious communication and racial and religious hatred, and put me in handcuffs. They guided me out into the front garden where they searched me and then put me in the back of a police van and took me to the local police station. While I was being searched in the front garden, my son escaped from his mum and ran downstairs to the front door and saw his daddy being searched and taken away by police. If I recall correctly, I turned to my son and said to him, "Don't worry, it will be all right. Daddy loves you." His son subsequently keeps asking if the police are coming back again. And he comments, "I will never forgive or forget the trauma that these officers put my child through. Before I was put in the police van, I noticed that a considerable amount of police resources had been put into this arrest, and there were at least 2 police cars present along with the van. I found out later that PC Chowdhury and his Met Police civilian assistant had travelled up the night before, 150 miles, and had stayed in one of my city's poshest hotels at £150 a night. So the pair of them would have cost the taxpayer £300 for the night, I suppose, and that's besides other travel expenses. Police then searched my property and took away all my IT equipment, including phones, in order to examine them to see if they were related to the offence. The offence, so far as I can make out, is making memes mocking Sadiq Khan and somebody else. We'll get to that in a minute. Whatever offence it was, that's what was going on. In the police station, I was booked in under the catch-all and increasingly misused malicious communication and racial and religious hatred acts. He was searched again, locked in a cell, and was given a duty solicitor. To you Americans, that's the equivalent of an attorney provided by the court. Are they called public defenders? Well, you know what I mean. And he says that this particular solicitor was pretty good and very helpful. The blogger handed the police a written statement, and the statement said that he was exercising his right to speak freely, and he then answered every other question with no comment. He says, "Although I didn't answer any questions, the questions themselves gave me an inkling into what the arrest was all about. From what I could gather, both Mr. Mughal, who is the founder of Tell Mama," and here I'm going to break in to tell you about Mr. Mughal. Tell Mama is a website you can go to report incidents of Islamophobia. And although obviously there are going to be some pretty dreadful ones, many of them are truly trivial. But they're all registered and have been compiled into a huge stack of complaints, which bolsters up the idea that Britain's in the grip of some sort of Nazi pandemic. Obviously, it's to the advantage of the administrators of Tell Mama to make the situation as bad as it could possibly be, to big up even the smallest and least significant and mostly non-racial incidents. And the founder of Tell Mama is somebody called Fayaz Mughal. And the mayor, he was, let's see, from what I could gather, both Mr. Mughal, who is the founder of Tell Mama, and the mayor, Sadiq Khan, had complained about memes mocking them. And the police alleged they saw on the Fahrenheit 211 website. They also asked me about an allegation made by Mr. Mughal that I questioned the narrative surrounding the Punish a Muslim Day case. To explain, apparently some nutter had posted something somewhere to the effect that one day in the year or something, everyone should punish a Muslim. I don't know what he actually meant by that, but yeah, that's not good. But it was one lone nutter, and it seems that this blogger was being accused of orchestrating the whole thing, so far as I can tell from this. And then, now, here is the most important part of the whole blog, the thing that really made me sit up, the thing that made me feel queasy. The police asked me if I was an Islamophobe, to which I replied, no comment. Now listen to this. The police asked an ordinary citizen, do you hate Islam? Because that's what an Islamophobe is about, isn't it? That's what the word means. Do you hate Islam? And that is a crime the police were trying to lay at this man's door. Now, maybe I'm not up to speed on this, but so far as I know, it's still not a crime to hate Islam. Not officially, anyway. It's a crime to incite violence, of course, but so far as I know, you can hate whom and what you like. And you can even say that so long as you don't translate it into action. I mean, I hate carrots. But so long as I don't go throwing bricks through the windows of the local greengrocers, there really isn't supposed to be much anyone can do about correcting my obviously unhealthy dislike of a vegetable. But those police were in effect saying that anyone who criticises Islam is committing a crime. That's Sharia law. Anyone who criticises Islam is committing a crime that entitles those police to shout across a table at you while you're sitting there still rubbing off the handcuff bruises on your wrists. Says they also wanted the passcodes for all his machines, which he quite rightly refused to give them. The blogger also says that if you want further information about some of the criticisms that have been levelled against Tell Mama and the sad state of freedom of speech in the UK, then I can highly recommend that you read Nick Munro's article, Escape from Big Mother. That's Nick Munro and Escape from Big Mother. I haven't read it, so maybe you could look that one up for yourselves. He also says that this incident should encourage those in places like the USA to hold on tight to their First Amendment. What places like the USA? I think the USA is the only country in the world that has free speech enshrined in law. I can't think of any others. If there are, let me know. But you know, if there are, it may be one or two. And America, that's a very precious commodity indeed, and you clasp that one to your heart and fight tooth and nail to keep it, because without it, the average citizen may suddenly find that there are a whole load of subjects that they may wish to discuss that are now forbidden, and in this case, arrestable. It's worthwhile bearing in mind that this man refused to answer any of their questions, and I think that was probably an example that anyone else who finds themselves in that position should follow. He ends by thanking all his supporters, as well as those associates who have contacted various online influencers in order to gain publicity, not just for my case, but also to support the cause of free speech in general. As a matter of fact, this is one of the reasons I'm making this video. to get more publicity for this fellow. And mostly, well, what more can I say? He was arrested by British police for making memes about a Muslim. You know, as I said, I get lots of comments under my videos saying Jews have control of everything. Well, I respectfully suggest that it's not Jews who have control of the West Midlands Police. But back to this blogger. Once or twice, my husband has said to me, "Do you really think you should be saying that?" And one of my sons actually said the same thing. But you know, if I don't say it, who will? At least I don't have a job to lose, and my boys are all great hairy fellas, not preschoolers, to be traumatised by seeing mummy being dragged off by the cops or kidnapped by social services, have my children taken into care or something horrible. Okay, if I got into that sort of trouble, it would be uncomfortable for me, but it wouldn't affect my family too badly, I suppose. And let's face it, you too. If you don't stand up for free speech, then you might not pay for it. Now, your children will pay for it. They'll be the ones who have to do the fighting. So you have to decide where you're going to stand your ground. So there's just no way I could or should keep silent about this. And so I'm not. Okay, thanks for listening. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.